As the Trump administration continues its zero-tolerance policy on families crossing the border illegally, 11,000 migrant children are being held in government custody without their parents, according to federal health officials, a 22% increase since April. Protesters gathered in more than 24 cities on Friday to condemn the Trump administration's policy. But earlier this week, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen slammed critics of the policy during a visit to the U.S.-Mexico border in Nogales, Arizona.
They think illegal aliens should get different, perhaps better treatment than U.S. citizens because they happen to be illegal aliens. No jail if they have a family, no critical consequences if they have children. If you smuggle illegal aliens across our border, we will prosecute you. If you cross the border, we will prosecute you. And if you make a false immigration claim, we will prosecute you.
Joining me now to discuss is Sayu Bhojwani, founder and president of New American Leaders, and Anushay Hossain, contributing writer for Women in the World and Forbes. Thank you both very much for being here. Sayu, let me start with you. What we just heard Secretary Nielsen say is an echo of what we heard the Attorney General say about this time last month. Let's take a listen.
If you cross the border unlawfully, then we will prosecute you. It's that simple. If you smuggle illegal aliens across our border, then we will prosecute you. If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you. And that child may be separated from you as required by law.
So, Sayu, given what we just heard the Secretary say and the Attorney General say just now, what kind of impact has that had on the immigrant community and those migrants who are coming over?
Well, can we just first say they are definitely on message. It's just that the message is wrong, that many of the families who are coming are seeking protection, not persecution, and instead what we're doing is stopping them and saying that they're coming unlawfully, when in fact the right to seek asylum is a completely legal thing under U.S. law. So we need to be really, really clear about that. And because of that, because we are being called illegal when no human being is illegal, because our actions are being called illegal when in fact the action of seeking protection in a country that has always been a beacon of hope is being called illegal, people are very, very frustrated and afraid, which is a very distinct impact of the message that they are sending. By separating children and families, we are trying to instill fear and succeeding in making people fearful, except they're not succeeding in making us be quiet.
Yeah, so they are making a point of saying that people are, these migrants are illegal, but there's another word that's being used by the president to describe them. Let's take a listen.
I have to listen to Pelosi and these people saying we have to respect them. They're human beings. They're not human beings. They're not human beings. And this is why we call the bloodthirsty MS-13 gang members exactly the name that I used last week. What was the name? Animals.
Anushay.
I am speechless. This entire situation, Jonathan, breaks my heart. And I think all around the world, just as mothers, the U.S. immigration, the history of U.S. immigration has always been rooted in keeping families together. And it is so shocking and disgusting that the U.S. is now in a position of being anti-children. And the president's language and this doubling down of the terms like animals and that these people aren't human is completely dehumanizing immigrants. And you know, I don't want us to get the numbers lost in kind of our shock and horror over this. 11,000 kids currently being detained by the U.S. government, 1,500 children lost, unaccounted for by the U.S. government, and 600 kids rounded up just in this past month. This is a cruel and ineffective policy. In fact, that footage that you showed of the mother that they were interviewing at the border, they asked her later on in that interview if she knew she was going to be separated from her son, would she still have tried to cross into the U.S.? And she said that the situation is really bad back home and the situation is equally bad in America. So it's not deterring these immigrants. In fact, it's just making their plight worse.
And actually, that's something that I hope viewers, if they don't like this, that they do appreciate it now, that by the reason people are leaving is because the conditions at home are so bad. But by the time they get to the U.S. border, they have endured so many hardships, obstacles don't even describe what it takes to get from where they're leaving to get to the American border. But Sayu, your reaction to those numbers and to what Anushay was saying and to what the president said at that rally?
Well, so let me just say that, I want to follow up on what you're saying, Jonathan, that they are coming here striving in the very same way that generations of people have come to America striving, including the founding fathers. Like, what we should be doing is not having a zero tolerance policy, but a welcome aboard policy. Because why wouldn't we want people who have worked so hard and endured obstacles to be here? Why wouldn't we want them to go through a system that helps determine whether they are, in fact, eligible for asylum? I want to clarify on the issue of the numbers, because there's a lot of conversation about the quote-unquote lost children.
Right.
And that, it's really important that our viewers understand that they're not necessarily lost by the government, but they are unable to be tracked, and there are multiple reasons why we aren't able to track them.
Oh, track, okay.
Yes. So it's not so much that the government lost those folks, is that they are unable to locate the children. The numbers aren't working, that the phone numbers that they're using to find the children aren't necessarily working. That does not necessarily mean that they're lost, that sometimes it is in the children's interest that they are not able to be tracked.
Anushay, I'll give you the last word.
I think that whether they're literally lost or not, it is very clear that the U.S. government cannot handle the amount of children that's coming into their care, and they have no process. There are risks and reports about these kids going off to traffickers, so it's a very dangerous situation that is cruel and ineffective.
And with that, we'll leave it there. Sayu Bhojwani and Anushay Hossain, thank you very much for being here. More AM Joy after the break.